Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. I will call the meeting to order. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, accept the agenda. Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the committee members accept the agenda of the Committee of the Whole on Wednesday, September the 20th, 2023.
Okay, and we will be deleting the Treasury Department report as Kim is off sick, so we'll bring it back on Monday evening. And motion to accept. All those in favor? There are none opposed. Okay, moving on to delegations. I'd like to welcome Le Collectif d'Artistes de Glengarry Artist Collective. Welcome, Yvonne.
And Bobby,
And Bobby,
the president.
the president. They just had Yvonne on here.
First of all, thank you again to the committee for giving our collective a grant so we could do something artsy in town. Something artisan-fartisan, I believe is the term that's being used now. I keep calling it poster, the mural in Mill Square, the Senate of Alexandria, was falling into disrepair, and it's unfortunate because it's an historical part of the town. Has 12 fine men of the town who would get together almost daily and discuss news and matters of interest. So we asked for money to rejuvenate it. We have. It is mounted. It looks beautiful. If you haven't been to Mill Square, you should go have a look. We look forward to the trees being trimmed so it'll be more visible. In order to bring the old mural to life, we had two of our artists create a new painting to scale. We contacted the original artist, Odile Tetu, who gave us her blessing to make changes. And we thought it would be best if you folks had the maquette of this 54 by 18.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. And who was the painter?
The two painters are Carrie Herwinen McIntosh and Tina Whitman. Sorry. Hello. So it's all yours.
That's awesome. So I'm going to ask the members of the committee to go up and going to do a special photo with you. And Tim, in case you didn't get that hint, she wants the trees cut.
Not cut down, just trimmed.
We're going to go out in the hallway and do the photo here, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. God, would I love to. So moving on to staff reports, we'll move on to 5B, Building, Planning and Bylaw Department, presentation from the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. Peter Young, Director of Planning and Economic Development. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much, Mayor McDonald, and thank you, Council, for having me. So today I'm going to speak about the population and growth management study that we've been working on at the counties and also with staff at your local municipality. Let me see. Which way do I point?
Is it on?
No. That would help. Thank you. So where do we start? We start at the provincial policy statement. That's what your council and any planning decision must be consistent with. What the PPS would say is that in municipalities, upper tier municipalities such as SDNG are responsible to do population and growth projections, allocate those projections by local municipality, and also to identify areas of growth and development. So right now we have populations that are done in 2016. They were based on the 2011 census. So you can see overall not a lot of growth in SDNG. North Glengarry in particular was projected to go down by 0.1% per year, and kind of steady to moderate growth. Again, this is based on the 2011 census. This was from the previous kind of official plan work that was done. Employment was not looking good as of that time. I think it was right after quite a few factories and businesses, industrial manufacturing was closing all over Ontario. So you can see overall quite a bit of decline was projected the last time projections were done for this area, and including for North Glengarry. So what's changed since then? It costs money. We hire a consultant. There's a couple firms that do this all across Ontario. Why do we need to update these? Well, one thing is we do have a new official plan that's approved in 2022 through the Ontario Land Tribunal. There's a new census, 10 years worth of data, 10 years worth of growth that's happened since the last projections were done. There's a new provincial policy statement coming out that says we have to protect for 25 years of growth. And right now we're only going to 2036, which is now only 13 years away from when we did the last study. So we don't have that 25 years of growth plan for anymore. One of the positive things, Ontario and SDG is growing faster than previously projected. I'll show you that in the next slide. As you know, housing, logistics, and a kind of a slowdown in some of the job losses that were happening before, and a growth from work from home. So quite a bit of change. It's time for an update, and there's some fairly positive news in this update. So you can see on the bottom that we were projected to go countywide, kind of very slow growth, moderate, up to about 70,000 by 2036. Now in the middle, it's gone up about 8,000, so over 10% difference from the last time around the projections were done. And now we're extending into the future to about 85,000 over the next sort of 30 years. So quite a bit different scenario than was done last time around. And on the employment side, it's even more dramatic. You can see that it was projected that SDNG wide go from about 21,000 to 18,000. Now you can see even the current years are already been going up and is projected to still go up. So very positive news overall that we've kind of reversed that decline that was happening in the 2011 time period. So these are the projections, the kind of draft near final ones that have been done for each local municipality. You can see the 2001 to 2021, there was a decline in population by about 400. But for 2021 to 2051, it's an increase about 1,700. So that's about 0.5% growth rate. You can see in the other municipalities in the counties, it's between that 0.5 and 1%. So not a huge difference between them. Some municipalities are relatively larger, so they'll continue to grow, but overall faster growth than the past where it was actually negative, but not compared to, let's say, Ottawa or GTA, just kind of moderate growth over time projected for the next 30 years. Fairly consistent among the local municipalities, 0.5 to 1%. Housing growth, North Glengarry and South Dundas would be quite similar in terms of what the growth projected, and they're saying about 760 units over that time period. I'll get into why maybe we have other projects that add up to be more than that just in one of the next slides, but you can see majority of the growth is kind of closer to Ottawa and Cornwall, being the North Dundas and South Glengarry, South Stormont. Those are also, of course, the 3 largest local municipalities right now. And that housing growth, I think another positive story in North Glengarry is that you're seeing from the previous 20 years, it was about 14 units over that census period. Now the projection is almost double the rate of growth, and also now that's more in line with some of the other area municipalities. So kind of a positive story there that North Glengarry's growth rate would pretty much double compared to the last 20 years of the census. What parts of the community would grow? Primarily Alexandria. So, you know, obviously this is kind of projections and we don't know for sure what's going to happen in 30 years, but they're saying out of that 1,700 new population, about 1,000 in Alexandria, 500 or so in Maxville. These are at the bottom right of the slide, and then about 110 spread throughout the rural area. Now, there could be kind of more houses than that, but also there's sort of an aging population, deaths, things like that, houses being demolished, so it's there might actually be more units, but the population would be relatively stable, but that's sort of the split that's predicted. You can see the population per unit would also be going down over time from 2.34 to 2.28, so fewer people in each household. Employment overall, about 600 new jobs over that time period, kind of split between the primary, the agricultural, quarries, that type of thing, work from home, industrial, commercial, institutional, and then the last one is no fixed place of work, so kind of steady, moderate growth, positive growth, so that's a good news story as well. Commercial also projected right now. Alexandria is the largest commercial center in the counties, and you can see on the right in the 25-year projection, Alexandria would still be one of the top growing areas for new commercial space. Some of them, such as Winchester and Lancaster, are overserved or underserved, so they'll probably see a bit more relative growth, but Alexandria is predicted to continue to grow commercially and already is the largest commercial center in the area. So we take all those projections and it turns into, at the end of the day, designations on a map that allow people to develop or not develop. So we have to look at land supply, how much years of growth do we have in each of our major settlement areas. And surprisingly, it varies quite a bit. Some are quite small, Lancaster in particular. In North Glengarry, if you add all the areas up and how much growth has happened in the past, there's about a 50-year supply of growth if you took every single property and developed every single piece of land. We know that doesn't happen because sometimes a farmer owns a land and they don't want to sell. Sometimes someone owns a 10-acre property and they just want the space. They don't want to have a subdivision behind their house. So even though there is that years of supply, that doesn't mean every single property will be developed in that time. And you can see some communities are even larger, 231 years or 114 years. So some of them have quite large boundaries that could be serviced. So, but what if you add up some of the different proposals that are out there and projects that are really underway, under construction, into detailed design? If you add all those up, that probably exceeds that projection, right? So all that's considered in part of the projections, but ultimately they are going to be using the historical growth patterns, the employment base, how many building permits have had in the past, what's the age of the population, what's the schools, the birth rates, things like that. Although not every, I think, development proposal that's out there might be included in that total, you can see that there is stronger housing, stronger employment, and population growth than any past last few decades, and also any previous projections. As we go forward and some of those projects start to get built out, that's when we can go back to the projections, usually every 5 or 10 years, revise them, make sure everything's being taken into account. One of the challenges, particular in North Glengarry, is just it's the oldest area in the region, has that 65+% that continues to grow. So that's having that range of housing is important, both for the aging population, and then as people move out of their homes, there's more family homes available as well. And again, some older homes could be demolished. So we have those projections. We have how many jobs are predicted, what's the next steps. We're just waiting on the provincial planning statement, the new PPS, to be finalized. The really nice thing about that is there's flexibility. So in the past, we always had to trade off with either other municipalities or other areas within your municipality. So if you're going to say that Alexandria needed more growth, you have to take it out of Glen Robertson or take it out of another community. And if you look at those boundaries, they're very tight. You can almost do no development in some of those communities because all the land was taken out of those communities to go to where the full services are. The new policies, the draft ones that are hopefully finalized, they've said this fall, are really kind of get rid of that 1-to-1 ratio. And as long as you're looking at your infrastructure, you're not impacting agricultural lands too much, you can have more flexibility in your boundary. And you don't have the other thing that we had in this area where you had to borrow from other municipalities as well. So like South Stormont had quite a bit of employment growth, but land was taken out of other communities to add to that community. We won't have to do that here or even within your own municipality. So that's two very positive things that'll come out of the next version of the PPS. So just wrapping up, this is, we'll be going back to you with official plan amendments for those new growth areas in fall 2023, winter 2024, depending on when the provincial planning statement is finalized. So just going back, you can see compared to the existing area, there are quite large areas already surrounding the communities. That doesn't mean every single property can be developed, and there might be some right on the edge that are owned by someone that wants to build, and maybe the infrastructure is right there. So now under this new policy, they won't have to wait till every other property gets developed or take from someone else. We can just plan for every possibility. So that's a really positive thing. It's not just for the serviced communities though. The rural hamlet boundaries will also be reviewed. And one of the other things is the severance limits per property and the date of when you can get a severance. In some communities, it's you can't have any more than 2 lots since 1980. I mean, I wasn't around. There's a whole generation of people that haven't been able to sever since that policy. So that's going to be updated. I would say probably closer to today to maybe reset the clock, and it could be a bit more consistent among the municipalities. The other thing, it's hard to just keep track of that because you're going back 40 years, 20 years, whatever. Even in North Glengarry, it's still sometimes to keep track of every single severance. Now we have everything digitized, so it'll be a little bit easier and more fair to everyone too, that it's a consistent approach. So that's the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the growth projections. I'll be back again when we have the next public meetings in front of council.
Thank you, Peter. And I don't think the 80s were that long ago, so whatever. Any questions or comments from members of the committee at this point? Good?
Question, I can't remember what it is.
Well, at least the numbers look like they're going up for us, so that's good news. So, okay. No, guess that's it. Thank you, Peter. Oh, go ahead, Chuck. Yeah, I have a motion. Go ahead.
Who received the presentation from the counties as DNG for information purposes.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Again, thanks a lot, Peter, for coming down. Moving on to Public Works Department, QMS review summaries and communication. Councillor Cadell.
Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Committee of the Whole receives report PW 2023-29 Water QMS third quarter update for information purposes only.
Thank you. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you all know, we have a drinking water quality management system that essentially we look at continuously through the year to make sure that we're providing clean, safe drinking water to the community. So this is just a brief update on that as part of the QMS system. So we have had 3 different events: the infrastructure maintenance, rehabilitation and renewal review, the annual risk assessment, and the provision of infrastructure review. So the infrastructure maintenance rehabilitation that occurred in June, the results indicated that the maintenance programs were in place and functioning. We discussed concerns in regard to staff changeover. We had some new staff. One of those staff members left to follow his girlfriend overseas, and but in that time we hired yet another younger staff member who's performing really well. All that means is that we're really just trying to get up to date with those newer staff members just in terms of their training, but they've all been performing very well. We are finding elevated water loss. It's not unusual in municipalities to find a high water loss, especially with older drinking water systems. And we've got an investigation ongoing. Council approved funds to start investigating that earlier in the year, which is ongoing and seems to be bringing us results. We also have, we're looking at making sure that we're mitigating equipment failures and making sure all the documentation is being completed. So the annual risk assessment was completed for both systems in July. There was no new or increased risks. And then we have just finished the provision of infrastructure review. That was August 28th. The results indicated that the maintenance programs are in place and ongoing. Operations are being maintained despite the staff changeover. There's no source shortfalls, capacity issues, or changes to the system risks identified. And essentially the system is up and running really well. But we'll always see, one of the results from the audit last year was making sure that we're having this communication with council, and to essentially give you the purpose. That's why I'm here today, to make sure that we know, you all know that we're doing this QMS system and that it's up to date. Yes, thank you. Ready for questions?
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
The water loss, how significant is it? Because are you aware that their telecom is filling a tanker almost daily from a fire hydrant?
Yes, so different companies can come to us and purchase water straight from hydrants. We do have a policy around that. But we don't actually think that the water loss most water loss in most systems isn't actually real. It tends to be a calibration issue, but we do continue to hunt down and find leaks. So for example, if you saw as part of our capital system, we have a valve replacement budget line item, and you'll notice that on Dominion and Derby Street, we were working there, and there we actually did find, as we're replacing these old valves, like just a large leak that was undetected because it was really just seeping into the ground and it wasn't coming up anywhere. So that's the sort of, especially in Alexandria, we get those water losses, but you'll find a huge percentage of the water loss tends to be an accounting issue. So that's what we're working on. When I say accounting, just measuring, making sure everything's measuring correctly and we're getting the right amount that comes out of the plant and equals all of the meter readings plus the amounts that we actually take out of the fire hydrants themselves. So, but it's something that we, all municipalities really want to work on, because any water that is, say, around those valves and is leaking into the ground is money lost, right? Because we treat that water as it comes in, and we want to make sure that all goes to our residents. So, yeah.
Any further questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On that same line of water loss, two things. I have a couple of questions surrounding the those automatic flush systems. I didn't realize there were some in Alexandria as well as Maxville. I know there's one down my end of the street there. And that's to deal with water presumably not becoming stagnant there. Is there a plan, a future plan for them where you don't have to do that? Because that's wasted water, right? I don't know how much wasted water, but
There isn't really much that you can do about it. Generally, we are undertaking a entire water a water master plan essentially, but we're really always going to end up with that water loss. That really comes from when the water's sitting in the system. As the chlorine drops, that water becomes unsafe, so that has to be flushed and let out in those dead ends of the systems. Hopefully, as the towns develop, we can create loops, which does help mitigate that and eliminate those dead ends.
yeah, I guess that's, if I may, Mr. Mayor, what I was wondering, if there are plans to kind of develop those loops so you don't have to have that.
Absolutely, and we work with the developers to try and make sure that their designs eliminate those dead ends as much as we can.
Along the same line, the transmission main is very long from Alexandria to Maxville. Do you have any way of knowing whether or not there are leaks along there?
That system is fairly new, and that's actually one of the easiest places to measure the water loss, and we're very confident that we're not getting any water loss there, because there's not all the services along there, so it's just measuring as it goes into the main and measuring as it comes out of the main. So the transmission main, our issue is chlorine residuals, because it takes a long time for that water to get there, so we're boosting the chlorine as we go and putting it into the tower. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Items under the consent agenda, Councillor Madden.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams, that the Committee of the Whole of the Township of North Glengarry receives the items from the consent agenda for information purposes only.
Any questions or comments on items in the consent agenda? Go ahead. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just under your report or whatever, I was noticing the HGMH pool, and we were able to find lifeguards for evenings and weekends, but still nothing for during the week, eh? Have any update on that or whatever, or is that the most recent? What we have in the report is the most recent.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. Yes, we have identified a possibility of having public swimming at this time on evenings and weekends, and Samantha and I are just finalizing the schedule. We have 2 lifeguards on hand for that. We are having difficulty finding a lifeguard for daytime. As we know, most of the time lifeguards are young adults, and as they migrate into more permanent positions, they forego lifeguarding. We're still hopeful that we're going to be able to find someone. We've had some discussions with other municipalities where sometimes some staff are open to changing, municipalities. So I am hopeful for the future, but notwithstanding that, our plan is to open up at least for public swimming. And we're just finalizing a few items also with the hospital. I know that the CAO has reached out to the director there about getting a parking pass bundle, and just ensuring that there's proper space also for the staff that's going to be on location. So those are basically the last few points that we have to finalize before we can launch the program.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd see that the skate park is going ahead, which is great news. And you mentioned in your report that the fundraising has sort of begun to pick up a little bit. Where are we at with that, and who's tracking it?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I shared a copy of the fundraising with Councillor Madden. He's also on the Alexandra Skate Park Committee. Did you want to do the honors on that one, or do you rather if I do it?
Continue.
Okay. So the last time that we reported to council, we were short about $45,000 on the project. I'm pleased to report that we received a sizable donation from Ron and Nadine Théoret. They came into the township office last week and gave us a $10,000 donation towards the project. So at this point, we have $345,440 of a total $375,000. So we're a little under $30,000 remaining in fundraising. And Mr. Régent Boulanger and I have approached a few more organizations, and we're hopeful to be receiving some more funding. So it has been coming in.
Good news. Thank you. Good to hear.
Thank you.
Good. And you did receive the check from the Alexandria Legion?
Yes, we did, and
Okay.
it's in the bank.
Okay, perfect. I don't have a question about the work plan. I just have a question. Can we maybe start to develop a plan for, we've often talked about who owns the islands at the park. And if you go into my office, there's a nice picture there of a nice, clean fireman's island. And it now, just driving by it today, it's just all trees and not really nice trees. So I'm just wondering if we can develop a plan for the 3 islands and how we can take care of them. And my other question is, and I know why we do it, but the growth along the water's edge that we do it for the geese is it's just I get so many complaints about it, because people don't understand. Mm-hmm. Is there any other way we can do it? I went to other municipalities, they're using steel wire to go all the way around, or something. I'm not asking for an answer today because I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there something that we can maybe work on over the winter and come up with some kind of plan on we have the most beautiful park, go by there today, everything's still green, it's all freshly cut, and there's people there, and I just look at that part of it, and it's such an eyesore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, the islands are part of one of the components that we're addressing under the Recreation Action Plan, so you'll be
Okay.
happy to hear that that's there. And I know that it has been a sore point with the community. As for the growth, I agree with you. It seems that we started with a little bit of growth, and now it's becoming wider and wider. So we can definitely look at different options and bring that back.
Okay, perfect. And once the geese, we start seeing them leave, can we maybe cut it?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tim, I'm just looking at your report here, and you talk about master plans for public works and the water and sewer hydraulic models, which is good. I think that's been a long time coming, those models. I'm interested in the sewer hydraulic model in particular, relating to its hold that it has on us in terms of being able to develop. And I'm just wondering, I know we've been talking about it, and I know you've been working on kind of coming up with solutions, but I'm wondering, do you have a timeline for when we might actually be able to talk about those solutions publicly, and then talk to potential developers who are in the business of the waiting game at the moment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we expect, I've already received the preliminary capital numbers from EVB. So we haven't seen the final report and been able to review it and send comments back. Depending on how finished it is when we get it, will depend on how that will relate to developers. But from the numbers I've received already in budget for 2024, you will be looking at approvals to essentially start that master plan and start, building our both water. I mean, water doesn't really need much work, but building essentially our sewer and storm systems to make sure that we can accommodate, future growth.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
So, Mr. Mayor? Thank you. I'd just like to issue a reminder that we do have the Business and Community Awards tomorrow night at the Glengarry Sports Palace. It starts at 6 o'clock. We do have a very few amount of tickets left, so if anybody wants to join us, please feel free to reach out to myself.
So that's a hint. If you have not purchased your ticket like me, we need to purchase it, okay?
We've saved one special.
Okay, thank you. Really, am I the only one? Oh my God, Shock Massey's ahead of me. I just wanted that to be on film. Okay, any further items, any further questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. No unfinished business, no other business, matter arising from standing committees. Councillor Massey, anything from the Raisin Region Conservation Authority?
We've been on summer break till, we have a meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, next time. Maxville Manor, any updates?
Well, semi-busy summer. The Lions Golf Tournament, the proceeds went to the Maxville Manor. As well, they ran a 50-50 during the Highland Games and raised $14,500.
Wow.
$14,500 for the winner. And with the repealing of the Bill 124, they were able to retro pay an extra 2%. And then, as of March this year, 3% raise. They received a grant for $82,000 for it's aimed at enhancing programs related to the experiences of seniors during the COVID pandemic. Maxville Manor will develop and implement a hybrid model of virtual and in-person services to reduce social isolation experiences by many seniors during the pandemic. It was a grant from the federal government and United Way. And last bit of news is on the 28th, they're having a trivia night in Russell. I guess the event is sold out, but that's also a fundraiser for the manor.
That's awesome. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Next, Glengarry Pioneer Museum.
Pioneer Museum. They had a fairly busy, as I guess they usually do in the summer. They did adopt their strategic plan that I mentioned at the last committee of the whole. I attended the Shakespeare in the Park at the Hamlet. It was very good. We enjoyed ourselves. They also did a classical music night. I guess it was well attended, even though it was a kind of a rainy, wet evening. The Fall Festival was on September 10th. That was well attended. And coming up this weekend is the War of 1812. And this Friday, they're hosting 3 schools with attendance. They're guessing between 120, 140 students will go through as they're preparing for this War of 1812. They're camping out and whatnot. So, and our next meeting is tonight. So.
Okay, great. Tim, are you at war this weekend? You're not? Okay. Glengarry Archives update. We have not had a meeting, but maybe I'll take this opportunity to give a little bit of an update on the work that we've been doing for the, I was going to say the Standard Fielder, for the Glengarry News. Myself and our archives director, Alan McDonald, have met twice with the owners in the last week. We met with a main proponent that had contacted us and was very interested. We met with him on Tuesday in Ottawa. It was a very good, Monday in Ottawa. It was a very good conversation. We are looking forward to maybe meeting this Friday between the owners and the new proponent. And we're at this point right now, just Alan and I are helping to facilitate the meetings happening. And there's also, we've heard through the grapevine that there are a couple other interested parties. One group, apparently father and son maybe, that are interested, and a group out of Southern Ontario. So looks like there's some interest, and I really think that I think we're gonna get our paper back. So I'm hopeful for that, and I think it would be great for the community. Arts, Culture, and Heritage, Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be making a special presentation tomorrow night at the Business Community Awards for a longtime resident who has been dealing with arts, culture, and heritage, and so that will happen tomorrow night. The community grants program is now open. The application process is now open. Deadline is the end of October. And our next meeting is a Zoom meeting with the Ontario Heritage Trust. They're just going to go through some details with us and hopefully on some of the changes that have been implemented with regards to heritage in the province of Ontario. So anyway, that's where we're heading with that.
Great, thank you. County Council update, Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a busy meeting, as usual. There was a delegation from the Social Development Council who are looking for funding from the United Counties for their operations moving forward. No decision was made at this point in time. Okay, now it's not moving. Hang on a second. Hang on. The county will be doing its budget deliberations early in December, which is good. A good timeline, get it done early. We had a very interesting tourism summer highlight presentation. The tourism is alive and well in SDG, and the tourism coordinator and their, I think, 5 students were very active across SDG all summer long, and they did attended all kinds of events, and they've really rejuvenated the tours at the jail. And they've got movie nights and paranormal activities going on, and anyway, they're really making the most out of those assets, and they're actually generating some income for the counties, which is good. I didn't think that a flag policy could generate so much discussion in my life, but the counties updated their flag policy, and it was a very engaged discussion. One thing that's interesting that you guys will be interested in is the county's going to be hiring this organization called Strategy Corp, and the woman who runs it, Sabine, yeah, you guys know about them. She I think it's her company. She's from Toronto, and she does all kinds of advocacy training and in terms of how to manage government to government relationships, and she's brilliant. Anyway, the county's planning on bringing her in for a session, and all councillors across SDG and across all 6 townships and CAO and I don't know staff, I think, are welcome to join and will really benefit, I think, from that session. The draft strategic plan was reviewed. Everyone was pretty happy with it, and that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Friends of the Trails update by Councillor Jeff Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The trails this last Sunday were used for the Terry Fox Run, which raised, I believe, close to $5,000 this year in Alexandria. So hats off to Ann Teveno, a resident of Alexandria, who took over the Terry Fox Run and did a great job with that. The Trails appointed a new board new board members in July, August, and we have a report coming here to council this coming Monday, I believe, with regards to the trails and talking about some of the land that the trails are on. So,
okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, I forgot
Yes.
about one item.
Sure, go ahead.
I forgot about the most very important item that was covered at the county meeting, and that was expression of interest for the position of warden for 2024. And our mayor has put his name in for 2024. Right. There is competition, however, but I'm confident that he has it in the bag.
Yeah. Can you make sure you take a picture of your vote? Okay. Okay, thank you. And just to go back to the Terry Fox Run, I just saw Ann Teveno put something on Facebook today, and they've raised over 5,000 so far, so it's really good. Community Development Committee, we have a meeting upcoming. Rural Affairs, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing, meetings upcoming. Is there anything anybody else has further to just bring up or discuss or get something off your mind? Mike? No, nothing? Yes, go ahead.
Just the community run on Saturday, this coming up Saturday or whatever.
Yes.
So,
We're both there, so are you coming? So three of
Okay.
us now? Apparently I have a problem with that.
Online, your price is gonna go up.
yeah.
You know what?
Very soon.
I prefer to do that, to give more to the community.
Not to call you out again, but I donated an extra $50 to them. I'm just gonna.
I can't believe you only gave an extra 50. Wow.
You gonna do 55?
51.25. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, as I left
Councilman.
Maxville today, our outdoor pad was in the process of being painted, so we have a basketball court. As soon as the baskets get set up, the pickleball will be ready to go tonight. Paint will be dry, and we're gonna install a couple of shuffleboard courts on the concrete pad, as well as a hopscotch and a 4-square game for the kids, so we're getting there.
That's awesome. And the plan is still to take the basketball nets from the one at the park? I just want to see Brian's. I hope your neck's okay. Yes. Wow, did you ever swing? Geez, I love chairing meetings. Okay, thank you, Gary, for your report. And if there is nothing else, our next committee of the whole is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023, here in the council chambers. Motion to adjourn, and we will be going into a special meeting and momentarily just to go in camera. So motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that there being no further business to discuss, the meeting was adjourned at 3:45.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.